When it comes to language and voice acting in games, I think it's interesting to compare Pokemon and The Sims, because I think they have similar goals, but they're achieving them in almost opposite ways. Because Sims communicate using Simlish, right? And as far as invented languages go, Simlish is in a different category than something like Dothraki or Klingon. Because, those languages, they have their own grammar and their own really thought out set of systems. But Simlish is largely gibberish, except for some specific cases like Sulsul. So the question is, why use Simlish instead of English or another language? And the answer is so you, as a player, can really inject your own imagination onto the characters and into the games. Because if the language isn't a recognizable language, you have no choice but to put your own words into these characters' mouths. But Pokemon also wants you to inject your imagination into the games. And they do that largely by silence, particularly with your player character, right? By not talking at all, the goal is to have the player inject their own voice into the silence. So now the question is, how did these two games diverge so broadly? And I think a lot of it has to do with how the game is structured. Because The Sims, in large part, doesn't have very many set goals, right? You get your character and you do whatever it is that you do. And that really incentivizes you to be more outwardly proactive, right? Because you're making this world your own. But Pokemon does have set goals, right? You're either doing gyms or taking down an evil organization or getting some Urban Mystica, right? But either way, we got people telling you what to do and giving you information in a different way. So in Pokemon, instead of making the world your own, the world is already there, and you're interacting with it or reacting against it. And right now, Pokemon's in a space where they're having these bigger cutscenes with characters, and it's kind of like a sweet spot for some potential voice acting, but I don't think they could pull off some created language like Simlish at this point. Because Pokemon has been intentional in having a distinct culture with each new region, and it includes different language practices, like in Paldea they'd be speaking Spanish, right? So to cover that up with something like Simlish or some sort of artificial language, that seems like a mismatch to me. If you want Spanish to be part of this game, I would want to hear some Spanish. And funnily enough, I think The Sims would have the opposite problem here. If Sims all of a sudden started speaking English, it would get repetitive in a way that Simlish wouldn't.